and I'm just going to start with the book I finished first. First book I read was Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen, placed in Bacon, North Carolina, and it basically is about the Waverly family, specifically two sisters named Claire and Sydney. And the Waverlys are known for having some sort of spooky abilities. Claire, who's the oldest sister, she has been charged with maintaining and protecting the Waverly garden. The plants within it sort of have magical abilities. She's also charged with protecting the Waverly apple tree. Now, the apple tree has a lot of myth around it. People are always trying to get to the Waverly apples. One of my favorite characters in the book, though, is Claire and Sydney's elderly cousin, Evanel, and her kind of Waverly power is that she feels the need to give people gifts. Now, these gifts are totally random. She doesn't know why people need them, when they will need them. She just kind of carries this tote bag around full of random stuff. Her house is full of random stuff, and she'll just wake up in the middle of the night or get a sudden urge during the day that she needs to find this person and give them like a band-aid. I loved this book. I loved the idea of the book. I loved the characters. I would love to read more from these characters. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. And the reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because there were a few scenes that I could have personally done without. The next book I read was Knit This Season by Kate Jacobs, and this book is part of the Friday Night Knitting Club series. I have not read any of the other books in this series, so I do think that that plays a part in some of my feelings about this book. I did really enjoy this book. It was given to me by a friend, and the reason that they gave it to me is because I'm really into knitting. I started this book several times. The first part of the book switches back and forth between characters a lot, and that was kind of hard for me, probably because I didn't know the characters from previous books. It's about a girl, mostly about a girl named Dakota, and her mother passed away several years ago but left her a knitting store, and it's called Walker and Daughter. And Dakota is a culinary student, and her goal is to put a cafe inside of the knitting store. The first part of the book, I had a really difficult time, I think, connecting with Dakota. I thought she was kind of selfish. About chapter 8, chapter 9, it really becomes very family focused, and it turns into this really, really super sweet story about Dakota and her family. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. That might be my own fault that I didn't enjoy it as much because I haven't read the other books. The next book I read was Farwell, Dorothy Parker by Ellen Miester, and this book was such a pleasant, wonderful surprise to me. It's about this woman named Violet, and she is a movie critic. She tries intentionally to channel Dorothy Parker in her writing, but then in real life she's very timid and kind of a pushover. Violet goes to the Algonquin, I think is how you pronounce it, hotel, which Dorothy Parker is known for having gone there a lot, and she is there having a meeting with somebody. She needs to be very brave in this situation, and so she thinks that being in that environment will give her some sort of ability to stand up to this person. And while she's there, she ends up getting the Algonquin Hotel guest book, and Dorothy Parker's spirit haunts the guest book. So now Violet is being haunted by Dorothy Parker, and Dorothy Parker basically gives her these little life lessons on how to be a stronger, more assertive person. And it's just such a fun book. It's so fun. Now, one thing, if you're not familiar with Dorothy Parker, is she was known for being pretty vulgar. I think not only for the 1920s, but for today, she would still be considered slightly vulgar. So some of the language in this book is a little rough, but it's just Dorothy Parker's character, and I think it's somewhat historically accurate to what she would have really been like. So I really enjoyed this book. I think it's going to be one of my favorite books of 2016. It was so fun. I read it so quickly, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The last book I read this month was The Paris Key by Juliet Blackwell, and I talked about this book in my last video. It was a haul video. Anyway, I read it really quickly. It was one of those books that was just like the right book, the right time. I connected with this book so much, and it just left me with so many warm, fuzzy, amazing feelings. This book is like one of my all-time favorite books, I'm pretty sure. It is about a woman named Genevieve, and Genevieve lives in California, and she and her husband are in the process of getting a divorce. She's also found out that her uncle has passed away, and her uncle lives in Paris and owns a locksmith shop in Paris. And so as a child, she spent a very long summer in Paris with her uncle and his family, and during that time he taught her a lot about the locksmith business. And so it's kind of turned into this hobby of hers. So whenever this happens with her husband, and she just kind of goes to this very deep, dark place and is very just wanting to start over. So she thinks that she's going to go to Paris, start her entire life over, and take over her uncle's business. And so while Genevieve is in Paris, she works on becoming a locksmith and getting to know all of the friends and family in France. But then there's also she finds out a ton of things she didn't know about her mother and just her family in general. So the book is told from Genevieve's perspective mostly. There are parts that are told from her mother's perspective back in the 80s. And then there's parts of the story that are told from her aunt's perspective, who is in an old folks home and she has Alzheimer's. And it's just like this huge, weird puzzle, and everything just kind of comes together. I loved it so much. I don't even know. It was like everything I want in a book. It was amazing. 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So I read 4 books in total, and then I started a 5th book. I might possibly finish it before the month is over, but as of right now, it is not finished. It is The Little Giant of Aberdeen County by Tiffany Baker, and I'm about 80 pages into this book. It is not quite what I thought it would be. I don't want to say too much about it now. I want to wait until I've read some more, so stay tuned for next month's wrap-up to see how I felt about it, and put it down several times. Hold on a second. What's your name? Oh, in the area. Kitty, you need to stop that. Give me my camera back.